I would like to start with asking you to maybe do a little bit of breath work just for us to be able to connect into the here and now. So I'm going to ask everybody to close their eyes and to connect with their breath, with inhaling 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Maintain 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And exhale 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can open your eyes now. So, good girl syndrome. So we can talk about the bad girl syndrome, but for this talk we're going to focus on the good girl syndrome. And what is that all about? So that's about, that little girl inside of all of us that wants to make everybody else happy, and that actually even says, it makes me happy to see other people happy. And I have no problem with that. I actually love hearing that, and I hear that very often with my clients. However, the particular thing I want to put the emphasis on is, how are you feeling? Are you giving from a place of love, or are you giving from a place of wanting to serve others, and sometimes to the point where you're actually going to be taking something away from yourself? And oftentimes people will answer to that question, it makes me happy to make other people happy. And then I bring them back the question, can you make yourself happy without seeing other people happy? Is this the source of your happiness? And maybe it's important to look into that. So I want to ask you a few questions, and I will be writing them in the chat so that you could look into them after the talk. The first question is, what would somebody that loves themselves do to honor that love? The second question is, how much time do you dedicate to nourishing your soul, doing the things that you love for yourself? What would you lose if you were to do those things for yourself more often? How is your relationship with your emotions? And how is your energy? Do you have a low vibration or a high vibration? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my story. So I did everything the way I was supposed to do it. I went to school. I got my bachelor's in industrial relations. I got married. I bought a house. And I had 2 beautiful children. I started working for a bank in the HR department. And then I had to consolidate family, work, myself, my siblings, my mom, life, the whole package. And after a few years, I went into a burnout. And then after that, I went through a depression. I developed an autoimmune disease, and I got zona at the age of 30. So clearly my body was telling me that I had to look into what was going on and maybe reset certain boundaries or make some changes or look into what was going on and why my body was deciding to maybe let me go, And I realized that I had a few limiting beliefs that I had to look into. So let me tell you the story about the time that I went over to my parents' house and I didn't have the kids with me. So my sister walked out and she looked at me and she said, "Where are the kids?" And I said, "Well, they're not here. They're with their dad." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And then my parents came and they asked me the same thing. "Where are the kids?" And then I answered, "Well, they're not here. They're with their father." And then my grandmother came in and asked the same question, and so did my brother. And that's when I realized, wow, I am but a mother. So that was the first limiting belief that I had, was that I was a mother, period. I did not exist in any other way or form than being that mother to those two children. The second limiting belief that I had was regards to everything that had to do with spirituality, with special abilities, and with connecting with divine energy. So what happened with that was that I was in a cafe with my daughter, her friend, and my daughter's friend's mother, and she decided to offer me a book about special gifts. So it said, it was a French book, it said, "Being a medium malgré moi." So it means being a medium without my, like it's more than what I could actually do, or it's not in my power. So I didn't react very well when she gave me that book. I was scared. I was actually terrified. I could feel it in my body. My reaction wasn't one of gratitude at all. And I was actually offended that she was giving me that book. So that came from the limiting belief that I had that I was going to be killed for being a healer, which is often a limiting belief that we have when we are in energy, or before we do that transition between where we are and where we're going and our mission, our life mission. So that was another limiting belief that I had, that it was important for me to look into. I was very Cartesian person. I was always very rational, and I was very afraid, although I was very sensitive person and a big empath and a big a compassionate person. I had a lot of trouble dealing with those feelings and being overwhelmed with my emotions and other people's emotions. So I understand now that I needed to look into those things in order for me to do what I'm doing today, being a life coach and being a theta healer. So the third limiting belief that I had was with regards to expenses. So it's an expense to invest in something, and the notion of it's an investment. So that was another limiting belief that I had. So whenever I wanted to do something, for example, for myself, it was an expense for me. So I had to make peace and look into that limiting belief with regards to expense and investment. And that I realized it when I spoke to Gabriella Emborn, and I had to decide if I was going to follow her coaching program. And then she gave me the fees, and then I panicked and I started thinking about all the things that I had to pay for my kids, and that it wasn't a priority. And before I could invest that type of amount, I would have to make sure that my kids were okay and that everything else was in place. And then someone made me realize, but it's not an expense, it's an investment. You're investing in yourself, therefore you're investing in your children, and you're going to be investing in your life mission. So the first limiting beliefs that I worked on when I started my theta healing was those three limiting beliefs. So I want you to take the time to look at your limiting beliefs and how they're maybe blocking you in any way or form into being the most anticipated version of yourselves. And I also want to invite you to look into a very, very important relationship. And it's actually the most important relationship to my eyes, is the one with your inner child. So I got these little figurines here. So you have the first one here, which is the adult version of yourself. And then you have the small version, which is your inner child. So what I invite you to do is to have a good talk with your inner child. And to help you with that, I am going to be offering a guided meditation from you to your inner child. So for anybody that wants the guided meditation, I will ask you to connect by writing on the chat, on the comments, and I will be sending it to you by email. So just send me your email and I will be sending it to you after the talk. So that's the first thing that I invite you to do after you ask yourself those 5 questions that I asked you earlier. In order for you to go and connect with that pearl that's inside of each and every one of us, okay? That's sometimes hiding, that's sometimes scared, that's afraid, that's confused, and that's been living maybe a life that was programmed for them instead of the life that they were actually born to live. I also want you to take a look at the Maslow pyramid of needs. So I have it here in a form of a heart. And often what I realize for myself and for my clients is that we're often pouring from an empty cup, right? To be in service for others. And what often happens is that the basic needs are not fulfilled, and we're trying to give service and help others when we ourselves aren't anchored with our basic needs. So I would also invite you to take a look at the Maslow pyramid with regards to the needs. And the third thing that I want to show you, actually the fourth thing that I want to show you, is to take the time to find a picture of a young version of yourself. So I'm about 6 or 7 years old in this picture, and to frequently go and have some kind of talk with that little version of yourself, and tell her 2 things: to love, to live, to hope, and to believe, and not to be afraid to say no. So oftentimes when you take the time to touch base with where you're at in many relationships, whether it's with your children, your spouse, your family, your friends, your coworkers, or even your employees, sometimes we have a hard time saying no. So it's to build this courage. I would actually say it's about courage, it's about clarity, and it's about conviction towards yourself and towards others, of really touching base with yourself and understanding why you're not saying no, because your body is always going to be telling you if you are aligned with what you're doing or not. So that's another thing that we can look into, is the difference between fear and intuition. Okay? And I want to invite you to realize how important it is to invest in yourself, to find out what you love, to find out what makes your heart sparkle and your soul smile, because there are beautiful things everywhere, every day, that you can connect to. And these things are different for each person. They're not the same for everybody, and that's okay. We're all unique. We all have our unique identity and our particular passions, okay? But a beautiful way to connect is by dancing, it's by singing, it's by connecting to nature. There's a very powerful energy, the mother and father energy, that we can find just by connecting to nature, going for a walk, going for a bike ride, going for a run, or going for a hike. Okay? And to garden, is another one that a lot of people love, that's very therapeutical for them. So they make sure that in their week they always have a day in the summer and in the spring where they can play. And that's really the word for these people. I'm playing with my flowers. And the last one I would say is to watch a Disney movie. So I often ask my clients, what is their favorite Disney movie? And through that you can connect to your inner child. It's a very, very powerful and easy way to connect to your inner child. So I invite all of you today to connect and to ask yourselves, what is my most favorite Disney movie and when was the last time that I watched it? So even if you've watched it several times in the past, I invite you to take the time today or in the next days to go and revisit that movie and see what comes up. There's a lot of powerful messages in our Disney movies.